This is 10-3, area of circles. All right, before we actually get started with some of the new learning, I want you to go back to your chart that you had where we had all the perimeter formulas. We went through a square, a rectangle, a parallelogram, a triangle. Well, we're going to add, we added a trapezoid, and now we're going to add for the circle. Okay, we kind of went through the perimeter of a circle, but we don't really call it a perimeter. We have a special name for it, and that name is called a circumference. Circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. So if I take the diameter, okay, of the circle and I multiply it by pi, I will get the measurement around the circle. Now we went through that in chapter 9. Now we're looking at chapter 10, which is area of a circle. And the formula for area of a circle is when we take the radius, so figure the radius of a circle, which is from the midpoint to the outside of the circle, center to the circle. If we square that, multiply it by pi, we get the area of a circle. Now also, I just want to remind you, we did have the formula C equals 2 pi r, meaning 2 radiuses times pi. 2 radiuses make 1 diameter, so either of those are okay to use. All right? So these are the formulas we're going to be working with today. Area equals pi r squared. All right. So we said the area formula for a circle is pi r squared. That means I multiply the number pi times the radius squared, radius times itself. Now, I can use two things, 3.14 for pi, or I can use 22/7. Or remember, I can keep it in terms of pi. So whenever I'm doing this, I start with the formula. Area equals pi r squared. Then I substitute in. My radius is 6 inches, so I'm going to have to square that. Okay? Now, I can substitute my 3.14. Now, as soon as I do substitute that decimal number, which cuts off the number pi, I have to use those squiggly lines, which mean about. As soon as I substitute in the number 3.14. Okay? And then I multiply it out. I get 113 4/10 square inches. In case you forgot how to multiply decimals, I'm going to do it really quick for you off on the side. 36. You generally take my number with less digits times 3.14, and I get 6 times 4 is 24, carry the 2, it's 8, it's 18, add a 0, I'm going to go 12, carry the 1, 3, 4, and 3 times 3 is 9. Multiply it out, I get 4, 10, 12, 13, carry the 1, 9, 10, 11. And so what we have here is 113. We have to deal with our decimal digits. I have 2 decimal digits. Look at them in blue. 2 decimal digits. That means I start at the right and I count over once, twice. Okay? So my answer is 113 400 square inches. All right. Area of a circle. If I were to, sometimes I use this and sometimes I don't. You know what? I'm going to skip through this. Okay, so now I'm going to show you one more, only this time, I know my PowerPoint says to use 3.14, but I'm going to remind you, when I have multiples of 7, it's always easier for me to do it with the fractional amount of pi, 22/7. So I start with my formula, area equals pi r squared. Actually, I'm going to do it off to the side No, I'll do it there. Let's try it actually first with the decimal, because then you can compare my PowerPoint. So we start with our formula. Why don't you try it this time with just the decimal? That's better. You guys try it with just the decimal. Pause the recording and let the kids have a minute to do number 1. All right, now let's check your work. We start with the formula. Area equals pi r squared. And then I substitute in. For my r, I'm going to get 7 squared. And I substitute in for my pi, 3.14, because that's what the directions are saying. I think I might multiply my 7s first before I multiply it by the pi. And just do that in the end. So when I multiply that out, you should have gotten 153 and 86 hundredths square inches. Now, had I chose to use the other method, now I'm still working on number 1. Because this is a multiple of 7, the radius, area equals pi r squared. Okay, I'm going to substitute area is about equal to 22 sevenths times 7 squared. Now remember, with our order of operations, we have to do our exponents first. So I'm going to end up with, I'm going to just switch colors here, 22 sevenths, leave that alone, times 49. And I'm going to put that over 1. Now, you can see I can cross cancel. I'm left with a 7 here. I can divide 7 out and I'm left with 7. Here I'm left with 1. And so what I am left with is, not is equal, because as soon as I stop using the symbol pi, is about equal to 22 times 7. Now 7 times 2 is 14. Carry the 1. 14. It's 14, 15, and that becomes 154 square inches. Now you can notice that's pretty close to the answer I got in decimal form, which was 153. We're about 14 hundredths off. And that's, again, because with pi, it's a number that goes on and on forever. When you use 22 sevenths, it's a little bit bigger. You cut it off, but it's bigger than 3.14, which you really cut off a lot of the decimal. I'm going to let you choose which form of pi you want to use. It doesn't matter what my directions say, but I'll let you choose that. Okay? Now, stop the recording and do number 2 on your own. Now check your work. Area equals pi r squared. Substitute in our 16. 16 squared is 256. Then multiply that by our 3.14. When I finish, I end up with 803 and 8400 square meters. Just a quick little view. Sometimes this might come up on like something like this on a state test where you have to, estimate a circle and it's placed on top of a grid. Now look, we know we can look at our squares and just start counting our squares. We have 16, and then I have 4 more, and 4 more, and 4 more, and 4 more, so that's another 16, sorry. Okay. And then I have about 1.5, 1.5 times 4. And then I've got about another 1.5 and another 3, 6, 9, 12. And we get about 50 square centimeters. Let's try it now using pi. I use pi r squared. Substitute in. We know that our radius goes to the middle, right? So I'm going 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, 4 units to get to the middle. So it's 4 units. So that's the radius I'm using. Okay? Substitute that in, 16 times pi. And when I multiply it out, I get pretty close to 50 and 24/100. So here's just a way to estimate. All right, so now let's do a little bit of practice. If I'm given my diameter, how would I figure out my area? Okay. The first thing you're going to need to do is figure out what's your radius. If my diameter is 16, now let me just draw a quick little circle for you. Oops. Draw a quick little circle here for you. If this is it, they're saying that the entire thing is 16. Now I want you to remember that this is a radius. It's half of that. So that's what I would have to divide it by 2, and what I get is my radius of 8. Once I know my radius of 8, I can use the formula area equals pi r squared, substitute my 8 in, square it, and then multiply it by pi. And we get 296 yards, square yards. On the other hand, if I'm given the area, okay, given the area, I should be able to find the radius. So I start with my area formula, and I substitute what's given. 78 5/10 is given, and we also know the value of pi. So I divide both sides by 3.14, and what I get is 25 is equal to r squared. I can do anything to an equation as long as I do it to both sides. So if I take the square root of 25 and I take the square root of r squared, the square root of r squared is r, is equal to the square root of 25 is plus or minus 5. But it can't be a negative 5. Let me come over here. I'm going to do that. The square root of 25 is equal to the square root of r squared. The square root of 25 is plus or minus 5. That means positive or negative 5 squared would give me 25. But I can't use a negative measurement, so I'm really only going to end up with that positive 5 would be my radius. And then if I know my radius is positive 5, then I could figure out my diameter. And my radius is 5, then my diameter would be 10 centimeters. 10, yeah. Okay? All right, finding irregular area. We're going to do the same thing we did the other day. I want you to start out, write it out in words. Step 1, I have the area is equal to a, let's see what my PowerPoint's looking like. Area is equal to a big rectangle. And this time, am I subtracting that half circle or am I adding it? I have to add it. Okay? Area of a half circle. So, remember, for area of a rectangle, I'm using length times width. For area of a semicircle, I'm going to use, and so I substitute in 10 times 6. What I get is 60. Area of a half circle, remember the formula is area equals pi r squared. But I have to divide that in half. Let me do it this way. 1/2, oops, let me do this. I think you might have a little bit easier of time this way. So I'm doing 1/2 pi r squared. Okay? And now for the radius, if the whole thing is 10, then how much is the radius? Just the radius. If the whole thing is 10, then half of it will be 5. So I'm substituting in 5 squared. My pi, I'm going to use 22/7. I just like to work with that better. And, or you can do 3.14. I don't know, whatever is easier for you. Because here, there's no advantage to either. And then I'm going to be multiplying by 1/2, or divide the whole thing by 2. Okay? Next up, I'm going to multiply it out. And I'm going to do, remember 5 squared is 25. Okay, I'm multiplying that by 3.14. And then multiplying that by 1/2. And remember, on the left side, I'm going to be adding it to this 60 square feet. Okay, 60. Okay, so I multiply 3.14 times 25. I get 78.5. These two come to 78.5. I'm going to have to divide that by 2. And what we get is, I don't have any more room, but I'm going to write it in blue right down here. 39.25. And over here I've got my 60 feet. I have to add them together because this is the area here and this is the area for here. Remember, it's half of a circle. Add them together, and what we get is 99 25/100. Pause the recording if you need to write the notes. All right, in this section, we're going to take the overall area of the bigger figure, which is a rectangle, or a square, sorry. But this time I'm going to subtract out how much of a circle? 1/4 of a circle. Now, again, remember, if it's 1/4 of a circle, I can write it as divided by 4. If it's half of a circle, I can divide it by 2. Okay, so we're going to have the area of a square, its length or side squared, so 7 squared, and that comes to 49 square inches. The area of a quarter circle is pi r squared divided by 4. Okay, and in this case, my radius is going to be, remember, if it's the quarter of a circle, I'm going to just draw it for you. Sorry. So that is my radius, 3 inches. So it's 3 squared and when I square that 3, I get 9. I can multiply the numerators together and then divide by 4. And what I get is about 7 65,000 square inches. Now remember, I've got the rectangle minus the quarter. So what am I left with? I have to use 49 square inches minus 7 65,000 square inches, and altogether what I get is 41 935 square inches. And that's 10-3.